witnessed those things happen yourself. You witnessed the miracles. You
Bro,
witnessed the
if I
resurrection,
witnessed
right?
any of those miracles,
Then you would believe in
I'd
Jesus?
be standing over there with you. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair,
Because
man.
I would
That's
go,
fair.
there's no scientific way. But again,
Yeah.
that is, as we know right now, it's very unlikely.
I'm curious, man, how familiar are you with where these stories of Jesus come from? How do you think we could seek after God? And by that, I mean, how do you think we could go beyond what nature reveals to us? Because, like, even the argument that I just gave, you still end up with a pretty general conception of God that might be able to fit with multiple world religions, or perhaps no religion at all.
So you're Christian.
Right,
So you believe in the Christian God.
Exactly.
So do you believe all forms of God, considering there's so many religions, they all are talking about the same God, just in different names? So what makes your God correct versus others?
Yeah, that's actually kind of what I'm getting at here is like, how can you, what reasons could we possibly have for thinking that this being that we talked about is in fact the Christian God and not the Muslim God or not the Jewish God, or maybe not the God of any religion, right?
So
you know what I'm saying?
you come, so for you're able to accept the idea that possibly God does exist, but maybe you've just picked the wrong one. And
Yeah, I
that
could
Muslim
definitely
God
be wrong.
might be the
I
right
could be
one.
wrong. Yeah, so like,
Okay.
so when
Well,
we think about,
that's
what
big of
nature
you,
tells
man,
us.
because there are
sorry,
a lot,
go ahead, bro.
Sorry, that's big of you because there are a lot of, I'm sure, Christians and Catholics who will go, no, my God's the right one. They're wrong. But for you to be like, maybe.
Well, I believe it, but I admit that, a lot of people are, no matter how you cut the cake, I guess, a lot of people in the world are going to be wrong, right? Christianity is the largest religion in the world. You have, billions of people. And then next to that, you also have Islam, also billions of people. They both can't be right. They have a lot of mutually contradictory
Well, you
truth
know why
claims.
Christianity is
So,
you know.
well, if you're talking about historical explanations, sure.
Yeah. So we know, so the size of a religion, I don't think can account for how correct it is.
Oh, yeah, you're definitely right about that. All I'm saying is that no matter what you do, lots of people are going to be wrong, right? And yeah, there's always a chance that you could be the one who's wrong. Maybe there's something that you're missing. What I was getting at is I think that nature can tell us a lot about God. Many people have concluded that God's not only the best explanation for the existence of the universe, but for morality. It's the best explanation for why other conscious beings exist. Best explanation for all the beauty in the world, for why things look so well designed. Even though nature reveals a lot of things to us, I think you could rightly conclude a lot of those things by thinking about the world rationally. Still, you can't move beyond that. You can't know God in a more specific way unless he reveals himself somehow, right? You can't move beyond what the natural world tells us unless God reveals himself in some kind of supernatural way. And there's lots of accounts of him doing that in history, like appearing in visible forms to people or speaking through prophets or giving us scripture or revealing things in dreams or visions or whatever. How much have you had a chance, Aaron, to study world religions, I guess, more generally?
I haven't studied religion just because.
You talk with some religious people, though.
I've talked with religious people and atheist people just because it's a really fun time and it's interesting. I like to get into those kind of conversations just because they're fun. They're entertaining. Like,
for sure.
We've probably been talking for a good time, and I haven't been bored the whole time.
I'm glad to hear that, man. Yeah, nor am I.
I've been engaged, so that's
a great conversation.
I enjoy this kind of conversation. No, I haven't really studied religion just because
that's okay.
I'm more focused on classes and information that makes me money. But it is interesting. I haven't ruled it out. Again, I was raised Christian. I went to Sunday school. At some point, I just stopped going to church.
The story of Jesus in many ways is very captivating and compelling. A lot of people would say that it's the greatest good versus evil story or the greatest love story or the greatest hero story, things like that. Obviously, a Christian like me would also say it's a true story. But are you familiar with, based on your time in church, like how Christianity says God has revealed himself to us in history?
So the stories I remember was at the river. There was a river where he, I believe, cured a man's blindness.
Okay.
Or he did some miracle. And then the water into wine. He flipped out when they saw the image of somebody's face on money, I believe. I guess his conclusion, they were idolizing somebody or something, and he got upset. Then Mary made him carry the cross, I believe, and then put him up on the cross. I don't remember a lot of my stories.
Oh, that's okay.
This is a long time ago.
Yeah. The reason why I was bringing that up is because in Christianity, Christians believe that God has revealed himself in a lot of those ways that we talked about before, prophets, scripture, like Moses' burning bush, visible forms. But Christianity actually makes the pretty radical claim that God has become a man and dwelt among us, right? That's what we're encountering in Jesus, is God in the flesh. That Jesus
How?
is the greatest revelation of God to man. That's when we think about how has God revealed himself to
Oh,
us
I
in
see.
history, that
Okay.
would be kind of like the greatest way, I guess, that he's revealed himself. It sounds like you're kind of familiar with like the story of Jesus, like his performing some miracles and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, I
Are you
remember
remember
that.
like the things that he taught or that he claimed for himself?
Right. Yes, he had the what was it, 12 apostles or something?
Right. Okay.
12
Yeah. Good job,
apostles,
man.
and then something about
Sunday school's coming back.
it is coming back, man. This is it, I mean, it was fun for the most part, and then I just you just kind of outgrow it, and then stop going.
Like, so trying to summarize the story of Jesus, especially within the larger biblical story, it'd be kind of like trying to summarize Lord of the Rings in a couple minutes. So I won't do that for you. But for our purposes, some of the things that are helpful to know is that he basically spoke and acted as if he possessed God's authority and stood in God's place.
Yeah.
He taught that the kingdom of God had come or was coming, which was this idea that at the end of time, God was going to take charge of the world again, rule as king, and it would restore things. It would set things right. It would be the world the way it's meant to be. He performed a lot of miracles, which are supposed to be kind of signs of that. You mentioned some of those,
Correct.
like healing the sick, giving sight to the blind, making deaf people
Yep.
hear, lame people walk, even raising people from the dead. That this is kind of like a foretaste of the renewal and the restoration that comes when God reigns as king. He was also controversial. He spoke truth to power, like criticized the religious establishment of his day
Sure.
pretty severely. He was also kind of a revolutionary in his ministry to the marginalized, to the outcasts. And eventually, like I think you may have mentioned, he was crucified on a cross.
Correct.
Our Christians believe he made atonement for the sins of mankind, for the sins of God's people, and then was resurrected from the dead. Those are what the accounts say, that he rose from the dead 3 days later. And according to Jesus, now reigns as king in heaven. That's kind of like some of the big components, I guess, of his story.
Sure.
Now, if these stories we have even just give us an accurate gist of Jesus and life,
Sure.
do you personally think that would give us compelling reason to believe in him?
If any of those things can be proven, sure. But
Right.
I mean, raising from the dead after what? I mean, I guess you can explain it with science. Maybe he wasn't really
Okay.
dead. Maybe he was blacked out because of the pain from the nails, and then the people were like, "Oh, he's dead," but he's actually just blacked out. And then he woke up and was like, "Oh, right, exactly." I guess you could explain some things with science, but again, that would pull away from the argument for religion. So I don't know. I don't.
So some of these things might be explainable in other ways, but well, maybe let me ask you this: if you witnessed those things happen
I
yourself,
witnessed-
you witnessed the miracles, you
Bro,
witnessed
if
this
I
resurrection,
witnessed
right?
any of those miracles,
Then you would believe in
I'd be
Jesus.
standing over there with you. Absolutely. I
Okay.
would.
Yeah, that's fair,
Because
man.
I would
That's
go,
fair.
there's no scientific way. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's part of what I guess what makes a
Right,
miracle a
exactly.
miracle, right?
If geez, let me think. If there was somebody I knew in my town and he couldn't walk. It was very established he couldn't walk. And Jesus came along and then made him walk. I'd be
Yeah.
like, bro,
I believe in you.
I believe in you, bro.
Yeah.
I'll follow you. I'll be one of the apostles. I'll follow you everywhere.
I'm
I'll
with
follow
you.
you anywhere. I'll drop what I'm doing right now.
I'm with you.
Forget business, bro. It's because it does. Something like that is beyond what we're doing now. It's beyond making money.
Sure.
We make money because we've created this false idol, right? To idolize money, to idolize wealth, to idolize, I don't know. There's people that idolize celebrities or something ridiculous like that. But if somebody saw Jesus actually perform a miracle, that's beyond anything. I'll follow you to the end of the earth. Where are we going?
All right.
What do you need me to do? Right? Build Rome in a week or whatever it's called? Absolutely. I'll start building right now because it'd be crazy. But again,
Yeah.
it's as we know right now, it's very unlikely.
Okay.
It's just very unlikely.
I'm curious, man, how familiar are you with where these stories of Jesus come from? Come primarily from 4 ancient biographies that have survived to this day. And those are the biographies that are included in the canon that we now refer to as the Bible, right?
Survived is an interesting word.
Yeah, there were other things written about Jesus that haven't survived
Additions
today, right?
made, alterations possibly made.
Yeah.
It's a good point you make. It's been so long now that people can be easily convinced that those words in the Bible are not the original ones, or they've been changed, they've been manipulated.
You're definitely right. I mean, in the manuscripts that we have, there are lots of variations between them, lots of differences between them.
Correct.
The cool thing is that we can actually be pretty confident about what the original said by comparing a lot of these together and engaging in a discipline that's called textual criticism. But just because we have a good idea of what the original authors wrote doesn't mean that what they wrote was true, right?
Right.
There's a difference between knowing what they said and knowing whether what they said is true. And the crazy thing is if you're open to miracles, like if you're not outright miracles can't happen, then a pretty good case can be made that the accounts we have of Jesus, the biographies we have of him, are at least generally reliable from an historical standpoint.
I don't know. That's kind of a jump.
Well, let me, you tell me anything of this. For example, the authors clearly intended to write history. They're written within a few decades after Jesus' death.
Sure.
They either had access to accounts based on eyewitness testimony or to the eyewitnesses themselves.
Supposedly.
And a lot of what we find in there matches with what we know about the society of the time, culture of the time, geography, politics, religious customs, etc. So overall, I mean, you can make a pretty good again, if you're open to miracles, if you're open to the possibility of supernatural and miraculous things happening, you can make a pretty good case that they're at least generally reliable. Maybe they're not perfect, you could say, but at least we get an accurate gist of Jesus in his life, of the things he said, the things he did, and of what happened. I'm curious, have you ever heard that before? Have you ever encountered that evidence before?
I've heard arguments for that Jesus, his miracles he did actually perform them, but again, I don't know, it's a tough one.
I'm curious, what's your initial reaction, I guess, to the possibility that God has revealed himself in history through Jesus? Like, what's your initial reaction to that? Okay. What's the reason for?
It's unlikely because of the follow-up questions. If you go, God revealed himself with Jesus back then. Where's Jesus been this whole time? When is he going to pop back up and tell us what we need to hear? The state of humanity has been bad for a while.
Yeah.
Look at World War I and II. Where was the interjection there? How many lives need to be lost before God goes, maybe I should interject here? And then if you go to free will, if you go, God goes free will, then why did he need to send Jesus in the first place? If we had free will, then you just don't send us Jesus. Leave us with the free will. Jesus didn't need to perform miracles back then. If he did need to perform miracles back then to bring more people to faith or get people to believe in him or whatever his reasoning for performing those miracles, why doesn't he pop up and do it again?
Oh, I gotcha.
You see what I'm saying? There's a lot of questions.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting question, man. Like, why isn't he, here performing miracles today?
Sure.
The world's really bad. We need him. He should be here.
Absolutely.
How does free will fit in all of this? Yeah, I mean, those are definitely legitimate questions. I guess I'm curious how that changes the historical reliability of these ancient sources we have.
I guess it doesn't. It's interesting because somebody would have to have quite an imagination to come up with all those miracles that Jesus, and I don't think they were smart enough to try to trick people like that back then.
Yeah, they're probably smarter than we give them credit for today, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say they're idiots, but I wouldn't say, oh, let's create this scheme where we write this book and we pretend this guy. I don't think it was that convoluted.
Certainly many reasons why it's unlikely, yeah.
Yes. I'd say I'm sure that he did exist, and I'm sure he probably had some great ideas. But the miracles themselves, that's a tough one. If I believe that, I'd be on your side. We weren't alive back then, so I guess we can concede that neither of us really know, and you're believing, again, word of mouth, which is a good one.
Yeah, testimony, especially eyewitness testimony.
And
it's about as good as it can get, right?
And I'm at this point not 100% believing it, but I'm not disbelieving it too. So I'm not going. I'm not going it's bull. I'm just saying I don't know. It's again, I'm leaning more towards improbable because giving somebody a blindness, that would be pretty magnificent.
Yeah. I mean, it's simply understandable why you'd be skeptical about the miraculous, man. Yeah,
for sure.
I think we can say that if it's possible that God exists, then miracles are possible too, right? Miracles are possible if God is possible.
Define miracles.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways you could define them, but supernatural works, something that can't be explained scientifically, that kind of thing. Yeah, if God's real, if it's possible that he's real, then miracles are also possible too.
If God's real, yes.
Which is at least possible. It's at least possible that God exists.
It's as possible as it is not possible.
Okay, well, you said earlier that you're giving me 51. Yeah, so there you go. Maybe a little bit more likely. Yeah.
Then it is not. Okay. I'll give you that after today because
nice.
Because
I'll consider that a win, man.
Yeah, it is a win. And this is great. What's your channel? I'm gonna watch if you
Yeah,
do, if you do
I'll write it
post,
down for you afterwards.
but
Yeah.
because this is a big dub for you today.
Obviously, a lot of Christians believe that the story of Jesus, that he isn't just that he is the ultimate revelation of God to man,
sure.
but they also believe that his story is very relevant for us today. Are you familiar at all with why that's the case? Like based on your church upbringing, that matters so much to Christians? I mean, the truth, God revealing himself, that's huge. But there are other reasons why it matters so much. I'm curious why it's relevant
today.
Right.